Cool. Amazing. So, thank you, everybody who is either here or watching this in recording afterwards. So, this is my third masterclass. I'm Bunny, and this time I'm talking about healing through burlesque, which is a topic that I never spoke about because, to be very honest with you, it wasn't so clear to me until then. And only recently I've been now having the time and the mental capacity to spend more time thinking and kind of digesting, all of the things that burlesque brought into my life because I was so busy, with work and other things outside of my control, let's say. And fortunately, I was able to kind of settle down and have this time to really think deeply, about things and start to journal and realize things for myself and how things have grown and changed with time and the role of burlesque in it. So, pretty much what I would like to speak about today is my experience with burlesque and the healing journey that has happened for me. And I hope that with this, maybe someone can relate. But at the same time, it's almost like an invitation for if someone out there, is listening to this and wants to try. There is many ways, I believe, of course, to heal in this world. And burlesque is one of them. And if you feel called to it, that might be one reason for you to give it a try. So yeah. Then I hope you won't be too crazy to follow because those ideas, as I told you, they're kind of also new to me. And as they are taking shape in my head, I don't have a full like timeline and list like this is what I have to talk about here and here and here to make sure it fully makes sense, to someone. But I'm usually organized with my thoughts. So I will say things as they come and then hopefully everything will make sense at the end. Right. So first thing is how how I see how it happened to me, this healing through burlesque. So the first thing to point out, I believe, is that this thing is first a process that happens at different timings for all of us. And at first one can think like why burlesque, right? I think it's quite not the traditional way people would think. If you're looking for healing in your life, probably you wouldn't be Googling, like, oh, burlesque. I think that many people see, especially from the outside, burlesque as something really fun and a hobby, something that you will look for at a high, in your life. And funny enough, that's not really the experience I have as for myself and for, I would say, all of the women that came through my door, or at least the vast majority of them in these years that I've been teaching burlesque. Um, and they might not feel this way. Of course, it might feel like looking for a hobby, but when you go a little deeper and when you dig, pretty much what I notice, even if I don't know at first, or if people don't share, or even if you don't feel like it, it's more than searching for a hobby. It's searching for something extra or something that is missing, some kind of, and not even the spice, like something else that is missing. Almost as if it's a part of you. And that shows up in different forms. So, for example, for me personally, it was probably the first time in my life that I was feeling safe because I had just moved countries and I felt very unsafe in the country I come from. And now I live in Switzerland. And of course, nowhere in the world is perfect. So I am aware I'm an adult, but it is a place where I found safety. And that first, so it was a big step. I could, if you ever lived that in your life, you relate when you're not safe, you just know yourself. You are whatever you need to be to protect yourself. And so that was something that was happening. At the time I didn't realize. I didn't know. I thought I was looking for a hobby. But actually, I was looking for something else. That's one thing. It could also manifest in a different way. So another thing that had happened to me is like I had recently lost a lot of weight. So I had a new body, I had a new way that I was showing myself to the world. And what I see from people here is taking ownership of themselves. So there is a lot of age or body change or something changing in people's lives. So it could be anything from changing jobs, ending relationships, moving on to a new place. There is so much that could be. These are just some examples that I can remember at the top of my head. So normally I see people starting burlesque for looking for something missing or looking for what we think is a hobby. And that's the very cool part, right? Because most of the time you will have tried other things. You have tried yoga, Pilates, pole dance, or I don't know, so many other things, like climbing, I don't know, running. Maybe you did try other things, and none of them feel like this is it. And I don't have, of course, the answer, like all of the things that I share with you in those videos is always my observations and my experience. There is something with dance to start with that's really important because in dance we use big mirrors, and funny enough, there is something about watching yourself in the mirror that's very intrinsic to healing, I find, because then you get to see and look at that person in the mirror, and there is a lot of different kinds of things people go through in life and traumas, etc. But it can be very triggering, like to look at yourself. And sometimes it can be very alien, even, like recognizing, for me, it was very alien. I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror for a long time. And it's not that I was avoiding it, but my body was avoiding it. And I just didn't look at my eyes. I just didn't like doing that at the time when I started. So there is this first. So when we come to a dance class, there is the looking. And now there is other dance, right? So there is, as I said, pole dance, there is heels or any modern dance, whatever. There is something in burlesque, and at least something that I make a big effort to offer. Actually, I don't want to say that because it's not an effort from my side. For me, it's just natural to do it. But people appreciate that, which is the safety feeling that we have in burlesque. And there is something really special about, first, how niche it is. And there is something extra special. And that is very interesting because this is one of the things that took me a while to realize. And yeah, I would just say it, which is the edge. the little danger, the little it's prohibited, the little forbidden. Because the second thing that I see in these people that come through my door and that I saw in me is that you're not only looking for a hobby, you're looking for the edge. There is something in you that doesn't want to be contained anymore and wants to come out. And other dances don't necessarily bring that because who is afraid of being judged by telling other people you're doing yoga or you're dancing, I don't know, I want to say jazz, right? Nobody, you can say that, like anywhere, in any context. But when you say burlesque, there is a little bit of an edge. To this day, when someone asks me what I do, there is an itch in my brain before I say it. And so there is something edgy about it. So that person in you is searching for something, and it's not any something. It's something, yeah, extra, something like very Leo energy, if you are into that. I wasn't, I just became very woohoo, like, and I allow myself to have my phases. So there is this very danger kind of vibe energy about it. So this is something spots like point number 2 about people searching burlesque and how it can help you heal. Um, it's the edge. Then I didn't know I was looking for that at the time, but of course, turns out it was. And it's very interesting because something like that, this little lion in you, cannot come out first as that lion, right? Because of so many things, so many layers that we either put around ourselves to protect ourselves, or because of whatever we grew up in or thinking or believing. So there is all of this. And then when you come to a place where you feel safe, the little cat, starts to come. Maybe it's a little kitten, you know. And I see that every day. Someone very shy coming through my door, wearing the craziest outfits, like in a few months in. Or someone very shy coming through my door, taking their bra off on stage, like a year or 2 years, from the first day they came through my door. Um, and how does it happen? And this is another thing that I've been really able this past, like couple of months already to sit with and think and notice, observe. We first need the safe space to do that. And that's the search. Then you find your burlesque studio or your burlesque family, or maybe if you are somewhere in the world online, like you find the spots to do that. And first, safety comes from the mama. So this is the thing that I provide here, for example, right? I have the space, I have my rules, I have my list of things, like if you want to be part of the group, these, like the behaviors, that you should have, and all of those things, which, as always, come from a place of love, and people get it, really. The right people get it, and the women that are looking for this, they find me and they feel it. And then there is this, first moment, and you need the space that is created and grounded by someone else that probably has been through that, just like you will be. In this case, here it's me, and it was my burlesque teacher at the time. And actually, one of my pole teachers was also very important in my process because she used to tell me like to look at myself in the mirror, and she really saw me. It was like the first time I felt seen somewhere. And then I just dove like right in head first, and there was people, like big producers, in Switzerland that are like my mentors and friends to this day, and they just gave me the space. That was the first time, because you have to try a lot of things, right? The edge, the danger is in trying something that feels almost like it's not allowed. So one thing that I feel like burlesque allows you and helps you in the healing process is in allowing you to be naughty in all of the senses that naughty has, which is really interesting because when you are protecting yourself, you're not allowed anything, right? And either because of someone or because of you or environment, whatever, um, you are in this cocoon where you are tiny and you are not allowed a lot of movement, and you start to internalize this, right? So you don't want to move that big, you don't want to call attention, you want to just stay there and protect yourself, and any touching on your body is like really just to protect. It's not really nothing to do with sensual that we do in burlesque, and you're not allowed play time. And even, let's say, because there is also this part, there is also people who are also coming to burlesque who never had a big, I don't know, trauma or whatever in their lives, which is also fine. We all have different lives. But maybe they were taught by society that you girl have to be a good girl, or you cannot do this, you cannot be that, you cannot be free like this, or your body should look like this, or like, if you are a human being living in modern society, you know what I'm talking about. And in burlesque, and in a burlesque studio, and also when it's a very healthy place, you will feel like, wait, I can do this. Not only what I do as a teacher is I try to push, and on purpose. Sometimes I create things that are provocative, or things that are very intentionally erotic or something. And the body has a lot to do with that, right? Because many times the body is what is prohibited. You are allowed to be living as a brain entity, but body, no, taboo, like. So I like to create those things because the process I see going through that, what's happened to me and what I try to provide to my students is, first you copy. And when you copy, you see someone doing something, you're trying to copy that. And then suddenly you have the mirror and you see yourself and you're like, oh, I am doing it. I hear that all the time. All the time. I hear students telling me, oh, actually, I can do it, especially in private classes, because that's when they're more vocal, right? Like, oh, I never thought I would be doing that. It's like, yeah, I can do it, and then this starts to internalize as well. The same way bad shit internalizes, good shit also does. We just have to work towards that. So there is this little kitten coming out, very playful, and it comes out as like you're touching things, right? Like a little kid. And then you realize that, oh my God, this is danger. Oh, actually, no, I can touch it. And I can do this. And I can try this. And I can do it. And I always emphasize a lot. And I make sure. And again, if you're taking, classes or something, you can know very well how healthy an environment is by how free you are to first express both things, where you want to be pushed and where you don't want to be pushed. And I make it very clear, even with my people going on stage, that you go as far as you want, as much as you want, where you want, when you want. Having this, and again, this is one of the things that's very important to me. Full power over your decisions and over your choices is very, very, very important for me, because that's also something that might have been denied to you in the past, right? Having this, that's the word, agency. Agency over your body, agency over your decisions, agency over your choices, agency over your desires, right? And actually, that comes a bit later. So then they come, I came, you look, you like, you copy. And that is very different for everybody. And this is so beautiful because there is so many different journeys, right? Maybe you are very close and then actually you just needed the little space and you poof, like give me a few months and you're done. Like you're doing amazing and going flying with your own wings. And sometimes you get here and you're, for me, for example, it took me many years. So I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything like written in stone, but it was a slow burn for me. Funny enough, I really like slow burns in burlesque. But it was just very slow coming to it. And all of those things I'm telling you literally just transformed into words and are this clear for me to say them in the past couple of months, as I just told you. Then you start to play, and then little by little, the identity part starts to also show. So I believe this is the next step. When you're like, yeah, for my girls, it shows us wanting maybe to do a solo, because then they like following, or doing moves, something someone else creates for them. But there is a point in which you're like, I like doing that, but I want to see what happens when I do that. What if I create for myself? And then that little kitten is maybe, a big Maine Coon cat, right? This moment, like coming out. And I'll tell you another thing about this later. I would just write this in the chat so I don't forget. The lion dream. And I don't want to forget to tell you this after. So that's the next step. And that's what I see a lot, like the girls coming and that is also so diverse, so diverse. Because some people, they come with, I want to do this act and it's going to be about this. And it's so transformational, big. It's a phoenix really moment. And some are just like, oh yeah, I don't know, I want to try classic, and it's so interesting because of course I only see part of it. And ideally that's exactly what I aim for, because I never want people to depend on me. Ideally, I want to open the door, grab your hand, help you in, and as you come in, I want to let go of your hand and I want you to walk with your own legs, right? So, and I will hold your hand coming in for as long as you need. But ideally, I want to see you just walking without any hands needed to hold you. You can hold your own hands. Then they play with it. So they do one, and sometimes that's it. I've had, like people coming for one, and I didn't feel it was over because I don't think that's enough, actually. But we all have our own timings, right? So I feel like some people will come and do one thing and then disappear. Life goes in waves. And also, I find it very important to respect those waves. And as I said before, respect everybody and give them this agency over themselves, which again, it's also very interesting because depending on where you are in your healing process, it can be a struggle to own those things. And I see a lot of self-sabotaging as well. And that can be seen in just getting very busy. Every semester, I have someone or a couple of people coming, trying a lesson, having tears in their eyes because they love it so much, Next week, they either change jobs or like something happens, but they happen to come back. Sometimes months later, weeks later, years later, and then they are ready for it. It's so interesting, how those things happen. Um, and I really like this flow. Yeah, and that's also something I find very interesting with burlesque because I don't know with other things, in fact, but there is a lot of loyalty involved in many things. So for example, I remember when I used to do my nails with one specific person, and it was so hard to leave. But I wanted to do something else that she didn't do, and I wanted to do a different shape that she would never do, and I asked for it. So I had this very clear feeling that I had outgrown that at the time, and I needed to go somewhere else. But every time I did, I stepped away and then I came back. The person would feel so offended that I went to someone else, and I don't think that helped me a lot because I was always pulled, because as normal human beings, you have empathy, right? And once you are with someone for a few years, you don't want to leave and stuff. But I do my best, and actually, it's not that I do my best. It's natural to me. I know people come and go, and I'm okay with that. So I allow my students, and I hope this is clear, also for them, that whenever they want to come, they can come. Whenever they want to go, they can go. And if they want to come back, it's fine. And if they don't want to come back, it's also fine. Like we go with the flow, and that's totally okay. Because again, I don't think burlesque is a one point thing in your life. I feel like if this is the thing for you, if you have this lion, coming, there will be the right timing for you. And only you can tell when the right timing is. Right. So the cat came out to play, maybe became a lion, and etc. And what I see, I would say it doesn't have to be the end of the world, but it's where you want to get. Because once you get there, the world is your oyster. Is that first feeling that you needed me to help you with, the safety thing, that becomes something that's innate to you. That becomes something that you create for yourself. So it goes from you are there and in your cocoon, and you need to find that space where you can hatch out of your egg. And you need that place and space and someone to maybe teach you a little bit, how to flap your wings, and like to spread your wings, and then to maybe push you, and I do that too, sometimes I push people like, maybe you can do it, do it to fly. And once you do that, you realize that the safety is something that you carry with you. So you can create that safety anywhere you are. There is something, and I know it's very difficult to grasp, but I think there is something energetically happening about that. Because, and if you're watching this, I would like you to take some time to also think about that for your own life examples. There is things that stop or start appearing or happening once something clicks and changes in you, in your life. So there are situations that happened to me in the past that were quite icky and I don't like, that somehow stopped happening. And I really think it's not because something has changed outside, it's because of the inside has changed. A little bit because maybe I have chosen better the environments I want to be in. It's because I have chosen better the people that I keep around me. It's because I have chosen better my words and my demeanor and my energy so that people are not comfortable to cause those icky situations, anymore. And it's very interesting because I talk a lot with my girls in our group. And as again, we are at different phases. So I know one thing that happens in burlesque, and we just talked, in another class, is comments from other people. I even posted something on social media about it. And sometimes people will comment on like, oh, I really like her act, or oh, I like what is something really mean sometimes people say. It's like, oh, you're on the bigger side, or oh, you're so brave, like I could never do that. And first it can be heard in different ways, but sometimes it means literally like, oh my God, like you don't have a perfect body and you can still do that, like so brave of you. I could never do that. And that's not really a compliment, is it? Um, and funny enough, that has never happened to me ever. I never had a comment like this. Um, but when I was an English teacher before my old career, I did have a few things like that. I had people complimenting me, on my accent, and I can't tell it's my accent. So I know sometimes I know some words like, oh my God, that word's like that was very thick accent. And nowadays I don't care about it anymore. But of course, when I was an English teacher, I practiced a lot my accent, so I tried to hide that English wasn't my first language and stuff like that. Nowadays, I don't care anymore. My English got much worse after I quit English teaching. But either way, there was a point in my life I was very proud of how small, how barely noticeable my accent was. And I remember very clearly, it's been years, I still remember that. There was this person, so in class, one of the teachers complimented me for my accent, and most people were very supportive. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's really good, really good." Da, da, da. We go on a break. There was this one person. They come to me and they're like, I don't think this is true. What? Like, what are you talking about? I think you have a very thick Brazilian accent. It's like, Jesus, is it even necessary? Like nowadays, that's what I'm thinking. But at the time, it really hurt me. It really hurt me. I remember looking for courses online, desperate. Like, we had this time, like now we've grown out of this. We know that there is a lot of cultural things, like I think people should actually be very proud of their accents because first, it shows that they speak more than one language, which is beautiful. But then on top of that, like it brings it's your heritage, it's who you are. You don't have to try and fake being a native speaker, right? You don't have to fake it. But I remember looking for accent reduction courses. I was so self-aware. I was like, oh my God, my English sucks. And it really got in my head. So there was a time in my life, and also when I was younger, because I don't want to have kids. I never wanted to have kids. I don't like kids. And when you're young and a woman, it's a lot of people talking, oh, when you're going to have kids? Oh, you're going to change your mind, blah, blah, blah. No, like I didn't. And I'm so happy I don't have kids. And every year I'm happier I don't have kids. So I hate to break it to those people, but no, I didn't change my mind. If anything, it got stronger. But what I want to say is I heard so many mean comments about that, like, oh, such a pretty face shouldn't be saying such ugly things. I'm like, yeah, sure, but the thing is, as I got like older and more mature, and I think there was a shift with where I put myself in, with my energy. And I have people telling me, sometimes like, oh, you look very intimidating, which is something I like. And by the way, if I ever told you you look intimidating, that's a compliment because I love looking intimidating. People who don't know me, they're like, oh, you look angry, or, like, I love it. But the thing is, I don't hear that anymore. how come, like this never happened? And I really think it's an energy thing. It's something that through the healing and through coming out of this shell a little, um, I looked intimidated before, and now I turned into looking intimidating. And I think burlesque can bring that. Not necessarily exactly this word, intimidating, but it can be anything you are. And when you are so sure and so certain on who you are, it's almost this barrier, and that other people don't really dare to cross because it's so sure. Nobody goes asking, I don't know, Michelle Obama if she's worried about her outfit, or like, hello, it's not your place, right? So anything you don't feel comfortable asking other people because it's so obvious, maybe it's something people felt comfortable asking you or saying before because you did look uncomfortable in that. So there is a lot of getting comfortable in your own skin and in your own desires, which is where I want to go next, that just shows to people without even being necessary to be said. And that happens a lot through burlesque. I always say that a woman that can own her body and take off her clothes in front of strangers on a stage under the spotlight, she can do anything, really, anything. Everything else is easy, right? So that's it about this part. Create safety. And I believe this is it. Like, once you get to this point, I don't think there is anywhere else that you need to go, but growth keeps happening because we keep working, right? And then I feel like two or three, because, like, as I said, now the world is your oyster and anything can come out of that. So for some of us, it might come out as becoming the next safe space for people who need it. So that happened to me in a different way, of course. I almost felt like I opened the space before I could create this for myself even before. But that's okay. Somehow, I had it in me. But for others, it might be, someone, and hopefully, some of my students will come out to either become my teachers here or to create their own spaces in other places. And um, yeah, I have students now going to other countries, or I plan to teach those things online eventually. That's why I'm moving on and on to the online world a little more, because I want to reach more people in the world who don't who happen to not live in Zurich, Um, and maybe once they've gone through this journey, they can create the next space where the little kittens can come play. They can create that for others. So you start from needing a place for you, owning it, creating the space for yourself, and then opening up the space to other people, if that's a calling for you. Another thing that I see, and that's where the desire part comes in now, is something that, again, for me, that happened crazy recent, which is, I want to say, February. So now we are in April if you're watching this video after. So again, a couple of months ago. Which is, for me, I didn't expect that to happen, actually. It's very interesting. And it came through burlesque and it's still in the topic of healing. Last year, I started working, at least having the idea of working a bit with my heritage. So I'm half Brazilian, half Japanese. And because I grew up in Brazil, I really saw myself very much as Brazilian culturally. And my mom lives in Japan, so I go to Japan very often, about 2 times a year for the past 10 years. So I've been to Japan a dozen times, always as a very, very, very tourist person, but never as like, this is part of, who I am. Until last year, I can't really tell what hit me. I can't really pinpoint. I just think it's when you cannot pinpoint something, it's probably a s- a list of things, right? So maybe it was a little bit of I had something happening in my family. Someone was very sick. I had the studio change. I moved my studio, from a far away one to one close to me. I was at a point very disappointed with the behavior, of some people because I didn't have the right boundaries at the time, So there was, I think it was a compound of things that eventually triggered that search. But I do think it came also from me inserting myself because we do have this thing in arts and in burlesque about searching for your heritage, right? So many performers are looking for that. So there was also something about that that was at the back of my head, maybe even without me noticing, it was subconsciously, there breathing, little by little and creating connections in my brain. And then I started looking for it. And then I had this idea of doing this act, which is about another thing that I discovered through burlesque, which is a lot of space to give and receive love, which was also a big topic as I was growing up. Brazil is a very Catholic country, and we just, and also it was a different generation. So my family, as probably many of your people, listening to this, families, they were also very traditional. So if I had friends who were girls, they were friends. If I had friends who were boys, they would be kind of love interest and so on. And I remember feeling very, uh, I want to say, imprisoned by this idea because I've always had so much love to give. And it almost felt like there was this, I had to find this one person. Luckily, I did. But like, I felt so restrained that I had to like channel all of this to one person, and almost not fair, even because people are different and people have different interests and different desires and different callings. And the things and the people I found in burlesque, the people that I really love in burlesque, my friends, my co-teachers, my students, like they fulfill me as a human being in places where my partner can't, you know. And burlesque allowed me to just have this free flowing love. Actually, there is so much love to give, and there is other places and other people that can receive this love. And that doesn't mean that I don't love my partner, like for me, it was a big changing thing. The whole thing moving, to Switzerland and going from, I was so arrogant. I was in this high horse and like, oh, I didn't take care of my body. I was so much into my head. I was like, because everything physical is so superficial. I'm so above that. I'm all about taking care of the spirit and the brain. I'm so brainy, and smart and whatever. And then with together with the heritage thing, and a lot of this comes from my upbringing because in Japanese culture it's very beautiful to be super restrained, and content, not showing emotions a lot. If you think about not theater, or um yeah, and even comes to my mind, some examples. It's very hierarchical society to this day. So um being very strict and always thinking things through and not just acting or reacting with emotion, the collective instead of the individual. So, and then these things mixed, and I was like, well, maybe I should create this act. And my first idea was to have a kimono with layers, and each layer was going to be a different phase of my life, right? So first the high horse thing, and then the second would be, like once I got rid of this one, it was a bit of shame, being able to really see who I was and not knowing where to go. And then once I did, getting hurt, and then feeling like angry because I got hurt until I got free. And it came through phases. To this moment, I'm still working on this act. And now it has two layers. Plus, like final review, instead of six, like I originally wanted to do. And yeah. But the thing is, through the process of creating that act, I had some mentors, and one of them was actually almost, it was really like therapy. And that was very, very interesting. It's also when I had the idea to create this masterclass about the healing. And then the other things came actually. So everything I told you before this actually came more recently than this part I'm telling you now. Working through an act when it's really about you, about your life, about something you want to own, something you want to take ownership by telling the story under your own terms. And I really believe that's very important for healing. There is something there that really helps you, because at the end of the day, after I think I took 5 hours with one of my mentors, and every hour was 10 minutes about costume and choreography, 50 minutes about what does this layer mean? Where is the anger coming from? How does it manifest in your body? How how comfortable are you portraying that? And every time I would come in, the anger was very specific. Like it's very difficult for me to show anger. And that comes from survival mode, like of course, and again, it's different for everybody. I'm talking about my own personal experience. um Anger was not safe, and actually I think for many women, anger is not a safe feeling to show. um and then where is this resistance of movement with anger coming? Why you don't feel comfortable performing a move that shows anger? And we talked a lot of this, like extensively. Of course, I did the work too. Between classes, I would do all of this thinking. I'm sharing a tiny bit with you, but I would sit with myself. I would look at my act. I would think. I would think back in my life. I would journal. So there is a lot there in between. But because I wanted to do this act, and I had the right mentors to guide me, this whole digging happened. And at the end of the day, it's not even coming out like that, because what is coming out now is still like the big uptight against something flowy and free, like I feel today, but more from an empowered point of view. So instead of being like, I would end before with the and actually I did, which is really funny. I never put this act on stage, but I performed for myself a few times. And my last moment was a very vulnerable one, and I cried with myself while I rehearsed and while I prepared this act. And it was so freeing, even if it never made to the stage, just doing that for myself. And then I realized that actually that doesn't have to make the stage. My final thing, I wanted to be more from a place of, yes, I'm vulnerable and I'm more powerful than I've ever been. And that's what I want to do. But I had to go through this behind the scenes for myself so that I could actually get to this point. And so I feel like summarizing this bit before I get to the desire, healing through burlesque happens in a macro cosmos kind of vibe, in a macro scheme of things, as you coming through a door when you need a space, finding someone who will provide you with the safety, and then building up, going from copying to trying, dipping your toes, internalizing, trying again, feeling uncomfortable, feeling triggered, finding comfort again, breathing, sometimes self sabotaging, getting sick, getting tired, changing jobs, can't do, back, and no, and yes, and going through all of this for as long as you need to. I do like to push for a stage, even if it never makes it to the stage, but you're working towards that. Ideally, I think all of those stories have to be shown and they deserve a space in front of the world. But again, I'm open to different ideas. I don't force anything on anyone until you're ready and you want to do your solo and you do it and you create for yourself and you have this feeling and then you start noticing that the stage is yours. That's your first safe space you create, of course with your burlesque family around you, but then eventually you can perform at other shows where nobody you know is there, but you have that safe space that you bring with yourself. It's yours. And then it happens also in the microcosmos of creating this one act where you have the idea and you go through it and you are guided. And I ask these questions, to my students: why this color? Why this? And if you really do the work and you go back thinking, and you're like, why don't you want to do this move? Why do you feel uncomfortable with that? Why? And that requires a lot of one-to-one work as well, I know. Um, but it can also be done in a group. And again, it can also be done with friends. It doesn't even have to be with a mentor. If you have someone you trust, or you can always reach out to other people. In my community, even I know many of the girls would be very happy, to do that. It happens in this microcosmos, as well, while you are creating one thing for yourself. And then it comes down to the one very important thing again that I want to say here, which is at the end of the day, it's not about wanting to be seen. It's about not hiding anymore. And I remember when this phrase hit me, I cried because now I come to the desire part, at least for me. And that's the step I am right now going through, is owning your desires. So I've done the cocoon, I've done the safe space. I feel very safe now in my skin. I feel I can create my own safety. I can provide this space for others. I feel very confident I can do that. Um, for me now, I'm in a place where, and again, I'm sharing this because again, it might relate, to someone listening to this. So I find it's important. So you're not alone. It's the owning your desire place. So for a very long time, and it's all about hiding and not hiding, I've hidden behind this wall of, I'm here to do bigger things. I'm bigger than this. It's more important than that. There is more to it. And yes, of course, there is, like actually, this duality is something that I only recently came to terms with, because for me, it was always black or white. It was always either I am this higher self, like illuminated being that is always spiritual and is here to support all of this community and is here, for this bigger thing. Or I'm this tiny being who just wants to be sparkly and step on stage. And I've been talking to a lot of people about that, some friends, but also some mentors in burlesque. And the last time I spoke to someone was on Monday, one of my mentors, and they were very clear about, we have this duality. Of course, if you were told you're gonna die in a few weeks, exactly. No, I don't care if I'm gonna be on stage or not, right? That's not important suddenly because other things are more important now. But actually, we have this full life to live. And I even mentioned that in one of my classes this Wednesday. Um, and I do want the sparkle. I do want this very mundane, is that how you pronounce mundane things? That's very um, superficial things. That's also part of me. And I realized that again back in February when I don't want to get into these details specifically because those things are yeah, definitely. I don't want to mention those. They're not actually personal, but it's important for me not to touch that at the moment. But basically, there were situations that were happening, for a while. And the repeated event that happened was that I was always very sad afterwards. And it's supposed to be a happy event, but I was always very sad. And I knew why, because I felt rejected many times. And rejection is a hard feeling, right? And it's something we deal with in burlesque. So it's really, really good, like it really touches you. And if you're ready to heal, like it's something that really scratches, like, and it touches you on that bruised place. And it will hurt. But if you trust the process, and I do, because I believe it, I believe in the process of burlesque, it's there for a reason. And for me, I had to go, I'd say a couple of years, like having this over and over and over and over again. Until finally February hit me. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. And yesterday I read something on Instagram that's very telling. I think I should have saved it. But it was something in the lines of, I've never seen real transformation that didn't start with someone getting tired of their own bullshit. And for me, that was in February. I got really tired of my own bullshit. And all of these layers that I keep using to hide, kept. I want to use the past, kept using. So I was like, you know what? Of course, I love the place that I created and I gave my heart and soul to it. Of course, I love doing other things I love doing. But there is a part of me, and that's the reason why I keep getting sad when I get rejected, that I'm not listening to. And it's the part of me that all she wants is to play with the big girls. There is a part of me that was desperately looking for acceptance, but now that I understand that, without accepting herself first, without giving herself a real good shot at it, doing the things that she already wanted to do. And it sounds very abstract. I know. That's because I'm still living that. So I don't have actually a very full, clear picture of it. Maybe I'll do a video like this, a year from now, and then I'll be able to express this with more clarity. But as clear as I'm able to get right now, there was this inner child in me that, even though I have all of this brainy things inside, all of this, I'm here to support other women, I'm here to do good for the world or to be my highest self. And just, being very sparkly on stage is so below me, so superficial. No, that's exactly what this child wants. All this child wants is to be accepted, picked, sparkly, spinning in her glitter rhinestoned dress on stage. That's all she wants. She doesn't care about supporting anyone. She cares that she's picked. And that's the one I wasn't listening to because I was judging myself. It's like, no, I can't have this small desire, like superficial desires, right? I'm bigger than this. Like, no, I am both. I am this duality. I have the bigger spiritual, soulful goals. I also have the wish to be sparkly on stage, and that's okay. But it took me forever to do that, to just allow this little child, like to live that. And I've been doing that ever since I realized that, like little by little. And again, I spent 40 years hiding this. It's not gonna happen overnight. So, of course, I'm working this. And as I mentioned, I've been working on that for the past 2 months. It's very recent. And then, funny enough, by playing with this child, I realized there was someone else that was also obliterated in my life, which is my shadow, which is the one feeling sad, the one telling me, you are so good. Why are you denying yourself the things you want to do? And me, that superficial, shut up, go away, don't do that. The critical in me looking, sometimes and judging, like, why am I not doing this? I could be doing that, you know? And just literally, like, I don't know, a week ago or something, during this whole process, and again, I'm saying all of this because I do believe this came through burlesque. Um, Recently, I realized that it's about having these two together, you know, giving them space, allowing myself to be the duality. Yeah. And that the once the three parts of you, your shadow, your inner child, and you as you are, come together, something beautiful will come out of that. And this can only happen really once you've gone through a lot of healing, because then that voice can come out. Because finally, many of the layers that were protecting you are dropped, just like our closing burlesque. And then there's something inside that you find. And then also there is the dark. And my mentor said something really important. And she was like, well, we all have a shadow, right? And it's, if you don't have a shadow, it's either one or of two things. Either you are invisible because, when the light hits, it doesn't hit you, so you don't exist. Or the sun is not shining. That's why there is no shadow. It's one of the two. When you exist, when you occupy space in the light, there will be a shadow there. And that's so true. I love this. I love, 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 love what you said. I don't think I'll ever forget it. So, my my current journey in the healing process is accepting my desires. So, I don't know if that might happen at a different point for other people, maybe. For me, it's happening now after I've done a lot of the other work. And now it's just putting that in the front, like this is what I'm doing. So every day I take care of working on my desires first and then doing other things afterwards. And that brings me to about 1 hour. The only one thing I want to share before I open here is share my lion dream with you, because that was very interesting. I used to have this recurring dream from very young age. I'd say when I was a teenager until I think it stopped 5 years ago, I want to say, which was a lion. Well, it was anything. So my dream was always a house or a space, inside. And there was always a wild animal at loose inside this space. And I would be hiding behind a pillar or something. And then this animal was going wild, like a bull or a bear or an elephant, or a lion, and they were knocking things, and I was desperate and I wanted to leave. And I wanted to leave because I was afraid of this animal, but I was always missing something. Maybe I didn't have shoes, or maybe I couldn't find my keys, or I couldn't find my bag and I couldn't leave. And there was this wild animal. And funny enough, when I think it was about like when I started burlesque or when I started deciding it was something for me, I had the last dream with this, which was the taming of the lion. As in, I had the lion and I had the pedestal, and the lion was on the pedestal, and my grandma was there. I think she was even alive at the time. And she would hold my hand and tell me to pet the lion. And then I was like, oh, in peace, with this lion or something. It was so surreal because after that, I never had this dream anymore. And I really feel like it was a bit related to this thing inside of me that wanted to come out. Like, of course, the lion is me, as the house is me, as I am me, like in this dream. So that was very interesting because, sometimes I think things you find meaning to things sometimes later. Sometimes something doesn't make sense at a point, but later you're going to be able to connect the dots. And yeah, so last thing, the one thing I went around the bush, but I didn't say. I've been doing a lot of journaling and so on because that's part of my healing now and my journey, which is that kid, like, or that whole thing about the rejection that I spoke about just recently. Funny enough, I had a conversation with a friend the other day over lunch, and she was like, yeah, but if you're doing this, and I'm creating besides the geisha act, I'm creating another kind of showgirlish act. She's like, yeah, but what is this like? Because I want to perform more. And she's like, yeah, but if you're doing that for yourself, what is the thing about being seen? Why do you want to do that? Like, and show it and be in front of everybody and so on. And for a while, I was a bit puzzled, but like, in fact, and I think that one day in burlesque, we all get to this point. And I almost feel like the best performers we see, those that we like look up to, that's the point they're at. And I'm so happy, I kind of figured out how I'm going to be able to embody it. I'm working on it. But at least I kind of feel like I figured out what that it is. It's not about being seen because actually I don't really care. I care about my moment on stage. I care about, again, not about being seen. I will just not hide. I will just fully heartedly do things or move in a way or act in a way or perform in a way because that's how I want to do it without all of the layers of like hiding. That's thing number one. And thing number two, funny enough, how do we expect other people to accept us when we wouldn't pick ourselves first? And this is the latest realization I came to, which is all of these times I felt rejected. I was kind of externalizing it and putting a culprit to everything. Oh, it's either this show, or it's this festival, or it's this producer, or it's this, or it's that. When in fact, every time I would not even put myself forward, or if I did and I got it, I would always be wondering, why did they pick me? And like, what kind of attitude is that, right? How am I expecting someone to pick me when I wouldn't pick myself? And this for me is like the biggest whoop, turnaround that recently happened, is that Now that I accepted my desires, my kid, my inner child, my shadow, and I've been working on those things consistently, I would definitely pick me. And I would be genuinely puzzled. And at the same time, I wouldn't care. Because when we try so hard, all the time to be accepted and picked for something, we only care when we are waiting for someone to be picking us. But when you pick yourself, nobody else has to. And that's really interesting. I know um how do you say it? I'm just saying things here and there. It's a bit confusing now. And again, it's because I'm living through this right now. But it's so interesting because suddenly I just feel so light because it doesn't matter anymore. I just feel so accepted and so picked by myself that whether someone else does or doesn't, it's so far from me. It's so interesting because we talk so much in burlesque about rejection, how to deal with rejection. And I spoke a lot about it even with my students. But honestly, I feel like only now I really have the answer. And everybody gets to this point at different moments in their lives. And for me, that's just happening now. And hello, I've been doing that for a while. So, first, also be very kind to yourselves. If you're watching this video later, whatever in the process you are, because we all have different journeys. And maybe you are even steps ahead of me. And I would be super curious to hear from you, like, oh my God, what does it look like for you? So that's it. And it's even a bit above 1 hour. I wanted to stick to 1 hour, but it's okay. It's a masterclass anyway. If you made it this far, thank you very much. What I will do now is I will open for questions, but or comments, at first. But I think I will stop recording, because then people can feel comfortable talking about personal things. Let me just close this and let me see how I stop recording first. So thank you for anyone who's watching this later. And let me figure it. Yes, there you go. Also stop taking notes.